It's like your brain knows that is going to be a very painful stage to walk in. So it's almost easier for the brain to stay stuck in rumination than it is to move to acceptance. Have you gotten out of a toxic relationship, but you still just cannot stop thinking about them? Whether it's checking up on them on social media, creating fake accounts on dating profiles to find them on it, trying to answer questions that you know you're never going to get the answer to. Are they the first thing that you think about when you wake up and the last thing that you think about whenever you go to bed? If you answered yes to most of these questions, it's very likely that you are still stuck in the rumination phase, and I want to explain why it's so hard for you to get out of it. And I don't know about you, but this was the phase of healing that frustrated me the most because I hated feeling like I was out of control of my own thoughts. I was so tired of thinking about this person that I knew was not good for me and that I knew I made the right decision to leave, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were never going to change, but I just couldn't stop. And I wanted control back of my thoughts, and I wanted control back of my life. See, what we don't realize about rumination is that it's simply just a transference of what was going on in the relationship, and now it's just being transferred after the relationship. It's a mental habit that was formed the entire time that we were with this narcissistic or emotionally abusive individual, because we were constantly in a state of ruminating when we were with them. It was just different questions that were going on in our brain. So it was, what version of them is coming home today? It was walking on eggshells. It was trying to avoid conflict. It was trying to always keep the peace. We were constantly ruminating and having this repetitive cycle of negative thoughts going on in our brain. And what happened is that our brain created a habit that's now, again, being transferred to after the relationship. The questions that are just being asked and what we're ruminating over, that's what's changed. Now, for those of you guys that may not know this, I'm actually in graduate school right now getting my doctorate in occupational therapy. So I'm not an expert on anything yet, I'm still just a student, but I am learning a lot. And one of the things that's heavily grounded in occupational therapy is actually neuroscience. So I've been learning a lot about how neural pathways are formed and how the brain protects itself and how we reform neural pathways or change them up. The brain's fascinating. The brain is biologically wired to protect itself from pain because without the brain, nothing else in the body will function. Most people say the heart is the most important organ in the body, and it is, but I almost argue that the brain is, because if the brain stops working, your heart stops working. Okay, so why am I telling you this? It's because when you were in this emotionally abusive relationship, you created neural pathways. When you do the same thing over and over and over again, and you create these mental habits, a pathway is formed in your brain. And the brain always takes the path of least resistance. So what it's used to doing, it's going to continue to do. But the brain's also really good at blocking itself from pain. And that includes emotional pain. So it's going to try to continue to keep you distracted from this place of acceptance, because when it moves to this place of acceptance of who this person really is, the experiences that you really did, the trauma that you experienced, it's like your brain knows that is going to be a very painful stage to walk in. So it's almost easier for the brain to stay stuck in rumination than it is to move to acceptance. Now, in a way, this should be really comforting for you because there is an element of rumination that feels like it's out of your control. And that's because your brain is doing a lot of it for you. It's just a really bad and harmful mental habit that's been formed. So be comforted in the fact that you're not crazy. Your brain is just wired to do this because of the experience that you had, and it wants to stay there to avoid moving into acceptance. But here's the unfortunate truth. You have to move into acceptance in order to break rumination and to heal and to reclaim your life. So now that you know a little bit about why rumination happens, let's talk about how you can get out of it. And to me, there's 3 elements that you need to break rumination. Number 1, like I've already mentioned, and I think it's kind of the first step, is to move into a place of acceptance. No more of this like, oh, there's a good person deep down, or oh, it wasn't that bad, or well, maybe I was the problem. Look, we all make mistakes in relationships, but the reality is, you know deep down you were not the problem in this, so no more of any of that. Number 2 is to find some healthy distractions so that way whenever you feel yourself going down that path mentally, you have something that can redirect your path and redirect your focus. That's that whole retraining neural pathways in your brain. And number 3 is to learn how to balance your emotions with your logical thinking. You see, when we're in these kind of emotionally manipulative and abusive relationships, we're completely emotionally driven. And well, maybe not completely, but for the most part, we really are, because we make emotionally based decisions. We have all these things happening to us that if we were able to think logically, we wouldn't tolerate and we wouldn't put up with it. But we let this emotion take over of, well, if I just show them what a healthy relationship looks like, maybe this will go away. If I love him harder, this will go away. If I watch how I talk to him more or her more, this will go away. We make emotionally based decisions and we start to lose our logical thinking. And we have to start bringing that back into the rumination. And that's also going to help you with moving into that acceptance phase. Now, this isn't one of the things that you need, but I just want to make sure that you understand it's okay if it takes you some time to get out of rumination. If I'm really honest with you, it probably took me about 6 weeks to really, really stop that. And there was still some elements that would pop up even after those 6 weeks that I would just have to readdress. It's a journey and it takes time. Retraining the brain is not an easy process. It takes a lot of work, and it takes work coupled with time, and it can be very discouraging sometimes. But you need to constantly be reminding yourself of, you don't need to be held down by what this person did to you any longer. They took enough. They took enough of you. They took enough of your time. They took enough of your heart. They don't need to be occupying your time anymore. And I know that's so much easier said than done. And I know that because I walked this walk that you're currently walking. But I'm also a prime example of, if you do the work and you give yourself the time, it's possible. And when you get on the other side of that, first of all, you're going to be incredibly proud of yourself, of the work that you did. And then you're also going to realize that your worst day without them was 10 times better than your best day with them. Hopefully this can give you a little bit of insight, give you some encouragement. Please comment if you have any questions on how to do this a little bit more, and I am definitely willing to talk about this. This again was the most frustrating part for me, so I understand your frustration and your anger and your desire to just get it to stop. So if you guys have questions, please comment and let me know, and I will make sure to answer them. And as always, it's my honor to be a part of your healing journey.